There are few genres in horror that are wilder than the Hong Kong black magic films. Now, today's movie, Seeding of a Ghost from 1983, is a great example of this. It definitely delivers on the goods. That is, of course, the goods are necrophilia, worm vomiting, baby monster face eating, etc. I mean, these Hong Kong black magic films are insane, over the top, shocking, and a lot of times just bizarre. And that's just the magic part. Those who are familiar with these Hong Kong Cat 3 films know, what else to expect. These films are rife with violence, sexual or otherwise. Nudity, debauchery. Seeding of a Ghost is no different, despite the fact that this wasn't originally a Cat 3 rated film. It's only because the rating didn't exist until 1988. But it was retroactively given that rating. But anyway, boy, does it fit. I'll save the Cat 3 topic overview for another video because I really want to touch on Hong Kong black magic films, because this is one of the greatest film genre discoveries that I've made for myself in many years. And I'd like to talk about that a little. Anyhow, before we get into it, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and why not shoot me a comment, okay? What's your favorite Hong Kong black magic film? Or what do you think of this one, okay? Okay? So if you watched any of my videos or listened to any of my podcasts, you know I've been a horror fan practically my whole life. However, it's only been the last couple of years that I was introduced to Hong Kong black magic. It was actually a podcast episode from a show... Oh, shoot, what's it called? Discover the Horror Podcast. I'm a fan of that show, and they were the ones that introduced me to this whole genre, right? I can't remember if the podcast pointed me in the direction of an article, because I did find an article on Den of Geek that was published July 6th of 2016. Craig Lyons wrote and published that article on denofgeek.com, and I urge you to go, at the end of this video, go check that out. Google Den of Geek, A Beginner's Guide to Chinese Black Magic movies. Ladies and gentlemen, this article has proven to be the starting place for one of the most rewarding cinematic journeys I've traveled in my whole life. Mr. Lyons gave a very concise explanation of what the genre is in the first couple of paragraphs in the article. Actually, I'm going to read that because he does a great job. Okay. In 1975, Ho Meng's Hua Black Magic cast its spell over Chinese audiences and summed up a subgenre that produced some of the most extreme, esoteric, and stomach-churning horror films of all time. Between the late 70s and early 80s, Chinese black magic movies were pumped out en masse, feeding audiences their fill of evil sorcery and twisted moralizing. The formula usually featured some poor schmuck enlisting a dark wizard to help them achieve something, more often than not something sexual, and finding the forces that they've unleashed are more than they can handle. Cue the flamboyant special effects and abundant nudity. These films took inspiration from authentic folk magic for their various spells and rituals, which sadly means they frequently feature real animal slaughter, etc. However, the human actors were put through the ringer too, from being set on fire and thrown around to getting their mouths and other orifices stuffed with bugs, snakes, and whatever else would fit. They're ready to be shot out in projectile streams of green goo. On the upper end of the genre scale, the Shaw Brothers Studios produced psychedelic nightmares of bug-eating and Buddhism, the latter because often a laser-shooting monk adorned with swastikas and scrolls would rock up and send the evil forces back to the beyond. At a scrappier low-budget end of the spectrum, black magic films would boast a genuine sense of malevolence and danger that even now makes them feel like they're operating at the very edges of cinema. Now, I couldn't have said that better myself, I guess, which is... why I just read his explanation, but that was awkward. But no, for real though, he does a great job there. And like I said, this is where I started on my Hong Kong black magic journey. It's like why is everything a journey? A weight loss journey? Never mind. I need to stay off the internet. It irritates me. Anyways, except for this YouTube channel. We love this YouTube channel. But anyways, okay, so read down in the article a little bit further. Goes off to list a few entries into the genre and give some short summaries. I'll let you look at the article yourself, but let me mention a couple that I love. Obviously, Seeding of a Ghost. I'll tell you why shortly. We'll talk about that movie, obviously. That's the subject of this show. I'll actually say that The Boxer's Omen from 1983 might be a great entry film into the genre, even better than this one, to be honest with you. It stars Bolo Young, the bad guy from Jean-Claude Van Damme's Kickboxer. He paralyzes a boxer, and then the boxer's brother visits Thailand, where he studies Buddhism and wants to have his revenge against Bolo, but finds a whole shit ton of evil magic stuff. It rules. We love it. Or if you want to ease into the Hong Kong black magic, maybe you should start with Hex from 1980. It's got a decent-sized budget. It's not nearly as violent, especially it doesn't have as much sexual violence as some of the others. But we still get a final act of bat crap crazy hauntings. So if you haven't already, it's time to start your Hong Kong black magic cinema journey, like I said. Journey. I wish I never said that. Okay, so Seeding of a Ghost from 1983, IMDb currently has this graded at a 6.5 with around 1,200 ratings. Directed by Kyun Young, who has 46 directorial credits. I'm sorry, I cannot. Here's my problem, and I'm going off a little bit here, but here's my problem with Asian names. I don't know how to pronounce them at all. I don't know whether it's a male or a female, so I'm just kind of guessing. So, but I'm not. I don't want to make any assumptions, stuff like that. So, so bear with me, I guess. And I guess if you've been listening long to either this show or the podcast that I do, you're used to me just being an idiot when it comes to this. So, again, I digress. Ken Jeong, who has 46 directorial credits on IMDb. There's nothing I'm really familiar with, but it looks like a lot of genre fare such as martial arts, sexploitation, action, supernatural type movies, stuff like that. IMDb has a couple of writers credited on this one. The first being Camber Huang, and the second being Yi Hyung Lam. This is Camber Huang's only writing credited on IMDb, but the person has worked in the art department for The Boxer's Omen, Inframan, a ton of others. But it looks like Camber Huang is mostly known for putting together title lettering, credits, things like that. As for Yi Hyung Lam, this person has 9 writing credits, but also 33 directorial credits. This person has directed movies like Erotic Zen from 1991, Lu Jai, Home for the Intimate Ghosts, also from 1991. Tales like Erotic Ghost Story, Perfect Match from 1997, and I just can imagine what that's all about. And some other sexy titled movies, stuff like that. Even movies with some sexually violent type of titles. This is something that's very bizarre because you'll get the R word like right in the title from a lot of these. And if you go to that Dead of Geek article, they mention one that's called the R word after. And I haven't seen that one, so I'll be upfront with you there. But it's bizarre, and I assume it has some kind of thing, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but maybe to do with how it directly translates or something like that, but I don't know. But some of those titles, like I said, go hard, man. Apparently I need to catch up with Yi Hyung Lam, because this person just has a ton of awesome sounding movies. But also I think a lot about these, and I mentioned this in, I was reading part of the Den of Geek article. I need to go into a deep dive about Shaw Brothers films. They ran a film production studio. It was going from late 50s all the way until 2011. They produced comedies, martial art films, Category 3 horror movies, and all sorts of other kind of movies. They deserve a ton of credit for their prolific work over the years. But like I said, that is beyond the scope of this show. But anyway, as for this movie, it stars Anthony Fang as the adulterer playboy, Philip Ko as the taxi driver husband, Maria Jo as the adulterous wife who gets murdered after the assault, and Wang Yung is a black magic necromancer. The story begins with Chow, a hardworking Hong Kong taxi driver. One night while driving, he accidentally hits a fleeing man with his cab. The man turns out to be a powerful black magic sorcerer, escaping an enraged mob of villagers furious over him doing some grave robbing and doing some dark rituals and all sorts of stuff like that. But they're so furious, in fact, that they have shovels, hoes, brooms, and other potential formidable weapons, I guess. It's kind of like the angry mob thing without the what do you call those? The torches, stuff like that. But anyways, although Chow helps the injured sorcerer escape, the dickhead sorcerer ominously curses him. And it's weird because so he thinks he hits the guy, and then he can't find the guy, and all of a sudden the jerk is in the back of his cab just being a silly boy, and it's just very bizarre. But anyways, the cab driver helps him out, and the dude's just like, by the way, don't mess with black magic because once it's touched, it cannot be easily escaped. And like almost kind of cursing him like that, or giving him a warning at the very least. Meanwhile, Chow's marriage to his beautiful wife Irene is going through some crap, man. Irene, who works as a casino dealer, is engaged in a passionate extramarital affair with a wealthy playboy named Anthony. She thinks she's too good for the salary of a taxi driver, and even though Irene and Anthony's relationship is filled with steamy encounters and dramatic arguments, Irene pressures Anthony to leave his own wife, and he wants nothing to do with that. Quite frankly, I'm not sure if it was the gifts that Anthony was giving her and like the money he was flapping around. I think it was actually Anthony's luxurious hair compared to Chow's. Like, brother Chow, brother, talk about a minute for the worst like box-headed kind of mullet. I know it was 1983 or whatever, but brother, I was there too. It wasn't that bad. Anyways. First part of this movie is all about the lascivious behavior by almost everyone involved. We have some gratuitous nudity, soft focus romance scenes on the beaches, and sultry saxophone music, which admittedly is kind of fun, you know? I mean, it's so silly. It's really silly. Mostly because the amazingly bad romantic music going on in the background, it fits so well, but also so bad. We even get a little montage of stealing a bikini top and silly running around in the ocean, and some very exploitative camera angles in the shower scene. It's funny because it's all meant to be light and fun, which to be honest with you, it really is, and it kind of seems just like a kind of a silly fun time. But anyway. Tragedy strikes, though. After a heated fight with Anthony, Irene storms off alone and falls victim to two brutal thugs who sexually assault her. I don't know if I can say the R word on YouTube, so I am going to try not to say it, but you know what I'm saying. That's the R word. Anyways, so these two thugs grab her, assault her, and murder her in a savage attack while she's kind of running away, and she kind of accidentally dies after trying to escape this. Now, devastated by the loss and overwhelmed by grief, Chow confronts Anthony, leading to a violent altercation where Anthony severely injures him. As the curse seems to manifest through these escalating misfortunes, a desperate Chow seeks out the sorcerer once more, not to lift the hex, but to harness its power for revenge. We have the cops blaming the husband, we have the cops blaming the lover, but they don't really end up having a huge impact on what eventually happens, and when I say that, I mean the cops. The sorcerer agrees to help out, but reveals a forbidden ancient ritual known as seeding a ghost. It's a wild ceremony. Basically, it involves exhuming Irene's corpse, performing dark incantations, and impregnating her decaying body with a demonic essence through the supernatural means, including one of the most bizarre scenes of sexual intercourse involving a floating rubber corpse and a cartoon that looks like one of those engineers from Prometheus. You know what I'm talking about? Anyways, the ritual is successful. It resurrects Irene's spirit in a gross, dead, desiccated form. A vengeful ghost is now fused with unholy power, carrying a demonic fetus. Like a mixture between The Thing and, have you seen that movie, The Deadly Spawn, or Return of the Deadly Spawn? Anyway, it looks kind of like that, except for it has, flappy little, tentacles, or not exactly. Anyways, I'll show you a picture. Basically, the rest of the movie is a wild battle between the necromancer, who is working with the taxi driver. The two assaulters have some old Taoist priestess working her magic for them, and we have a Taoist monk working for the adulterer. Who's a good guy here, man? It's difficult to say. But they battle each other with fun cartoon effects, yellow Taoist papers, and just absolute chaos. The two sexual assaulters are attacked by people who should not be involved with attacking them in that way. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. It's just a bizarre, flesh is melting, bodies are exploding, just crazy body horror fun stuff. Honestly, this is one of the most fun movies I've ever seen. And like I said, you might want to start with the Boxer's Omen, because that has a lot of the same stuff as this one does. The effects in this were amazing, all except for maybe the necromancer's makeup. Kind of looked shoddy a little bit, but we looked past that. It was 1983. You took it home on VHS, and you couldn't see that as well as you can in HD now. But anyways, you got your practical effects, your in-camera visual effects. Very imaginative. I'm talking fireballs on strings, man. It's like crazy stuff. One thing about many of the Hong Kong and other Asian films, the Hong Kong black magic and a lot of the Asian films, I've noticed over the years, sometimes the dialogue is wild. Like it's either really bizarre or silly. And I really think that I have to chalk it up to the translation. I mean, obviously I don't speak the languages, and I have to believe that some of the translations are literal translations of figures of speech, And so it's just kind of, there's just every once in a while, it'll be so bizarre. Also, some of the acting is really weird as well in these older Asian movies, and the Hong Kong black magic movies are no different. Like I said, chalk that up to the period and the culture. I've actually really grown to love it, just like I grew to love the Italian dubbing and all the other quirks that we have in a lot of foreign type films from that period or periods past. Let it be known, though, I'm not one of those trigger warning dudes, okay? But a ton of these Cat 3 movies are full of violence, including a lot of sexual violence. I've never seen it presented in such a dire way in any of these, like it was presented in like Irreversible, but it's still pretty brutal, and it's bizarre how prevalent it is in these movies. I mean, there are tons of these movies with the R word in the title, weirdos, just bizarre. Lots of fun battles, however, lots of naked ladies. One of the craziest rituals put to film was seeding of a ghost, man. It's just bizarre. It's creative to a point that it boggles the mind at times. This is a sentiment that I get a lot when I'm watching these Hong Kong black magic films. I'll tell you what, though, man, I love this movie. I think that I like the Boxer's Omen a little bit better. I'm not really sure why I didn't go with that one, to be honest with you, but this one's also gonzo and crazy. I love the genre. I hope my wife does not like it. She's like, oh, another one of these, and she just looks up, and there's naked Asian women, or there's just crazy people barfing, like goo, or worms, and just other things that my wife doesn't really quite like. But listen, I hope you're familiar with this genre and have seen a bunch of these, so you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying like I have no words to describe it. But if you're not familiar with it, man, you are lucky. In the respect that, I wish I could go back and watch some of these for the first time again. You know how you do that and you're like, well, now that's you. I want you to appreciate it. Watch some of these movies knowing that this is the first time that you will want back over and over again. Anyways, I think that's all I got for this video, for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, like it, comment, give this channel some love, will you? Make sure to visit corpsecollective.com to check out other projects that are going on over there. Man, I love doing these videos. I love watching these movies. I love recording the podcasts that I do. And I hope that it shows through in these videos how much I love this stuff, because it's exciting and I want you to be excited about it. I kind of want to share it. So hopefully there's a couple of you out there that haven't seen it, and I'm sharing it with you, and that would make me happy. Anyway, till next time, I'm Mike Cadaver, and I will catch you guys later.